Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Actually, it's time I bring out some better quality. So you know what? Let's do a YouTuber transition. YouTuber transition. Wow! Will you look at that? Yes, I have got a new camera. I was watching one of my old videos the other day talking about the Gamma K MK61, and other than being completely embarrassed by the general lack of quality and research in the content I was putting out there, I also realized it had been quite a while since I touched a budget keyboard, especially with optical switches. Now, I could have gotten another model to review, but I figured wouldn't it be a lot more fun to simply mod the one I already have? After all, I love mechanical keyboards, I've watched a ton of videos regarding the subject of modding, so why not try to make this sound as good as possible? That's my mission for today. Let's get into it. And there it is, that's the box right there. Sent to me by Banggood back in the day, so shout out to them. I'm gonna wrap it, take out cable and switch puller, plug it in, and it still does that thing with the RGB, oh well. Probably has to do with my camera settings, cause trust me, it doesn't actually look like this. Let's turn off the RGB even though it's the main selling point, and look, before we do anything, I need to address something. In my previous review of this keyboard, I talked about its insane delay that basically made it unusable, but now, if you go to the Banggood page and download the Gamma K software, there's a firmware update that basically fixes the delay completely, to the point where I could comfortably use it to play Osu. Now, as you know, I don't really need to use a keyboard since I have my SIM-pad, but if you have this model, I recommend you do the same. With that out of the way, it's time to unplug and take out the keycaps. I had some trouble initially cause those two metal wires were too close to each other, but I switched to my trusted puller and yeah, that worked. Though I eventually resorted to nature's best keycap puller, my hands. I've made a big mess on my desk, but through the power of video editing, all I have to do is snap my fingers and... oh, god damn it, I messed up. No! Bring it back! Bring it back! Much better. To be completely honest, I'm not a huge fan of metal switch pullers, as they more often than not end up scratching the aluminum plate. Normally I would use a small plastic tool, but I didn't have it with me, so I tried to take it slow, but I ended up YOLOing anyway. The good thing about optical switches is there's no pins that I could potentially damage or bend, so I'm totally free to just take them out explosively, though it's not recommended for obvious reasons. The escape key had a blue switch and it just wouldn't pull out. I struggled with it for quite a bit and ended up using my power and rage to get rid of it. Again, not recommended. It was around 10 AM. I knew lubing will take a long time, so I decided to do it before anything else. I got me a nice stem holder, switch opener, 00 paintbrush and Krytox 205 grade 0. All of these were sent to me by a company named Keycrocs. They're based, because they sponsor my channel obviously, but more importantly, they are based in the UK, so it's a pretty good store for us EU people, since we won't have to pay as much for shipping and costumes. Besides, if you use code SPAZA at checkout on their website, you can save some extra cash, since you'll get 5% off your first order. Time to whip out my personal lubing station, also known as paper towel. For my first switch, I tried to get some decent shots of me lubing. I'm no Thea types or anything, but I'd say this looks pretty cool. After lubing my first switch ever, it was time to reassemble it. And... oh. I thought I messed up big time, overlubed, disappointed my friends and family, but turns out I just didn't close it properly, hahaha. Thank God. At this point, all there was left to do was simply lube all the switches, and I gotta say, it was actually a pretty relaxing, almost zen-like activity. I finally had enough time to listen to a couple podcasts I had missed out on, I listened to some music, it was very fun for the first 2 hours or so. After that it became progressively more and more mind-numbing. I was about to give up halfway through, but in order to motivate myself I listened to 1 hour of Cherry MX Brown Switch Sound ASMR, and that was enough to snap me back to reality and remind me why I was lubing switches in the first place. Surprisingly, achieving an even coating on the bottom housing and stems was rather easy. My biggest problem were the springs. These goddamn springs. I just didn't have any oil or anything like that, so bag lubing wasn't really an option, and I had to spend so much time hand lubing, it was a complete nightmare. Granted, I could definitely feel the difference in sound between stock and lubed, especially the spring ping, but hopefully next time I'll do bag lubing and save myself a lot of time and pain. In my opinion, the last 10 switches is what separates the men from the boys. Let's imagine you're outside and you feel the urge to take a piss. If you're like me, you can probably hold it for hours and hours on end, but the second your brain realizes you're getting closer to the bathroom in your home, that feeling just multiplies by 100 and you just wanna let loose and enjoy the victory stream you had been waiting for all day. This was a very similar experience. My body knew I was close to finishing this torture lubing job. I was starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I got a lot slower and those last few switches genuinely felt like they took me hours. Eventually though, I had done it. Every single switch had been crytoxed by yours truly, and at that point, there was only one thing left to do. Yeah, I'm taking a nap. Alright, I'm back. I got my fingers, I got my tweezers, it's time to take out the stabilizers. Disassembling the stabs was a pretty straightforward process. I didn't have any issues, and I didn't have to clip them since the legs were perfectly straight, just like me. I severely underestimated just how tedious it will be to wipe the factory lube off. It was very thick and white. Yes, very thick and white. Guys, let's make a cum joke. Shut up. It could be dielectric grease, no idea, but it got all over my hands and fingers, everything became sticky and nasty. So yeah, I guess this is why most people just opt to replace stock stabilizers. Once again, I tried to get half decent shots for the first stabilizers, and I'd like to think I lubed it quite well, though I definitely had some trouble snapping it in place initially. As you can see, I dropped it, and I even got some Crytox on my arm. Fun times, guys. I eventually figured out how to do it properly, but before lubing all of them, I wanted to check whether the one I did felt sluggish or not. I put it on the keyboard, got a keycap, pressed down on it, and... oh no. I'm a failure. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. I wasn't born with the keyboard building genetics. It's time to retire. But no. After spending an extra 10 to 20 minutes trying to figure out what I did wrong, I finally found what the problem was. I didn't put any switch in. Yes, that was the problem. Turns out the key works just fine, but as you can probably tell, it was a bit late, so I decided to go to sleep and continue on the next morning. Cool transition incoming. Hell yeah, I love it. Other than slightly adjusting the white balance on my camera, I went on to lube all the stabilizers and found out I could hold the wires with my stem holder, making the lubing process a lot less messy. With all of them out of the way, I tried putting one on again and I noticed some wobble, so I went for a timeless classic, the Band-Aid mod. The only Band-Aid I had in my house was this big boy, and look, I don't know who designed this, but it took me forever to open. Even with scissors I struggled, so I can't imagine trying to get one of these out in an emergency situation. I pray for anyone that had to go through that. Good god, man. At this point I just wish I had better video making skills, cause unfortunately my hand gets in the shot 90% of the time, but hey, I put the band-aids and stabs in, they sounded good to me, so I was ready to go to the next step, the case. Only 6 screws were holding everything together, so it was pretty easy to take them out, and lifting the plate, I was surprised to find out that 70% of you aren't actually subscribed to my channel. Can you believe that? Okay, I'm sorry. I was very surprised to find out that there's a very thin layer of foam, but you can barely feel it. So I got this 3mm thick foam from a random box I had laying around, and look, we're not trying to be perfect here. I took my scissors, I tried to fill each and every gap to the best of my ability, and I don't know about you, but that looks pretty goddamn good to me. Now, I could have put everything back together, but why not be a bit trendy? After all, look what I've got. That's right, masking tape. Needless to say, I really wanted to try the Tempest Tape Mod, where you basically take some tape, stick it behind your PCB, and supposedly achieve a more poppy, marbly sound in a very inexpensive fashion, which is quite rare for this hobby. Before applying tape, I had to put all the switches back in place, and people usually don't do this mod on hot swappable sockets as far as I know, but I don't plan on swapping these optical yellows anytime soon, so I might as well just go for it. I could have put multiple layers if I wanted, but I'll be conservative for now and only go for one. I poked some holes to make sure the screws could go all the way in, and finally, I was ready to assemble the keyboard back together. Everything went smoothly, only the keycaps were left, and I took some extra time cause I couldn't resist the urge to spam each and every single key. Now, do I think the keyboard sounds perfect? Of course not. I think the switches turned out pretty consistent, though as I said, springs may vary, and especially on the stabilizers, I feel like I could have spent way more time tuning them or just replacing them altogether. Despite everything, this was a ton of fun, I learned a lot, and I definitely plan on doing more keyboard modding and builds in the future. Before I do the big sound reveal, I really wanna thank you all for watching this video, and if you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and if you're a keyboard expert who's watching this, cringing because I made some glaring mistakes, please educate me in the comment section, cause I'm very eager to learn. Once again, big thanks to Keycrocs and Banggood, and I'll see you all in my next video. Have a good one, guys.